Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our review of the 2025 Champions League final. Inter came to claim European soccer's biggest prize, but for the second time, they've lost to a sports washing exercise. PSG finished a job that's taken them 15 years with a team that played far better than any of their peers. Inter played in yellow, but they left Munich with the blues. But hey, at least it was good for Beckham and Tom Cruise. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, your friend of mine, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan. I did pre-write this joke. I'm going to do it now anyway. The only thing more aggressive than PSG's press on the day was Paramount's attempts to make me watch David Beckham talk to people. They, buried their actual coverage to be like, are you sure? You sure you don't want to have Beckham on? Tom Cruise is here. Don't you want to look into those black shark eyes? No, I did not. Ryan.
Yeah. Tom Cruise provided the kind of analysis I would expect from a man who is promoting a multi-million-dollar film franchise and is at a game for that reason.
Still better than what I got with Rio Ferdinand on TNT. Rio Ferdinand, a direct quote, "This was a win for all of football." So there you go. Thanks for that, Rio Ferdinand.
Not Italian football, Rio. No,
not that type of football. Or the non-sports washing type.
Graham Ruthven's here. Hello, Graham. How are you?
I'm very well, Ryan. I'm kind of reeling after that game, to be honest. Probably the most one-sided Champions League final, or maybe even major final I've ever seen. I mean, until now, looking at the Champions League finals, it was probably Barcelona beating Man United in 2011, but that was nowhere near as one-sided as this game. People talk about Milan beating Cruyff's Barcelona, but that was before my time, so I can't really relate to that. So yeah, this was on another level as far as I'm concerned.
And it was the record, right? The record margin of victory. But even if it weren't, even if it had stayed 4 or even been 3, the number of chances PSG created, how dominant they were, how suffocated Inter looked, it was just one of the most complete performances I think we've ever seen from a finalist in a final. That makes sense. PSG were just incredible on the day and deserved the win and then some.
There we go. We are talking moments after the final whistle of PSG 5, Inter 0 from the Munich Football Arena. Don't call it a sponsor name. Don't do it. The goals from Hakimi, the opener. Doué scored what the Italians like to call Doué goals. Good joke. Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia and 19-year-old Seni Mayulu getting the 2 goals to make it 5-0 in the end. A first Champions League title for Paris Saint-Germain, a treble for Paris Saint-Germain, and another treble for Luis Enrique, who took his shirt off at the end, and that man still works out, just going to say.
Yeah.
He definitely has his vitamins.
He's making us all look bad.
Yeah, very much so,
Ryan,
much so.
Do you know who had an even better season than Luis Enrique? Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia, because as they said on the broadcast, he played enough games for Napoli to win Serie A. Now he's played enough games for PSG, and he's won the Champions League and the Domestic Cup as well. Wow. A quadruple for Kvaratskhelia in 2 different countries, plus the Continental Cup.
That can't be beaten. We had that question on a listener question recently, right? And we were sort of struggling to think of examples. That can't be beaten. Like the Scudetto win for Napoli is special, Champions League for PSG is special. That's something else.
Yeah, that's just lots of parades in his future, I think.
Within the crowd, some of the Parisians had a Napoli banner up as well to try and sort of tease the Inter fans in the stadium. I imagine they are feeling quite disheartened that one of the PSG players also won a title with Napoli last week too.
I imagine they took all that down around the 4th goal, and they were just like, you don't need us to tease you anymore. We're fine. Although they were still allaying, so I guess they were doing some teasing themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, Taylor, let's get into it. Jamie Carragher at the end of the broadcast, he said, this is the greatest performance of any team in a final. Obviously, PSG were absolutely outstanding, but do you go along with that, given that maybe Inter didn't show their brightest sparks in this one?
So my honest answer is yes, I do, with a level of discomfort, because I never trust my brain to not immediately have Graham be like, this one, when they won this way, that doesn't spark anything for you? Because, I mean, even the most dramatic comebacks, Manchester United in 99, that's still a comeback, right? And it was Bayern's game until it wasn't. This was PSG's game from start to finish, and they were just so completely dominant. It is the best finals performance that I can remember, and again, as I said, it's not just the scoreline. It is how they defended and how much, they disrupted everything Inter tried to do, how good they were individually, even when they were a little bit wasteful at times to start the second half. I think you can get away with it when you're still scoring 5 goals along the way. The clever combinations, the quick passes, some of the trademark Luis Enrique moments from his Barca days, I think there were like 11 one-touch passes back and forth at one point in the second half between a center back and a central midfielder. Probably didn't need to do that, but they just went for it anyway because you can never not complete passes and play for Lucho. This was remarkable.
Yeah, it totally was. And when this game goes 2-0 so quickly, what is that, after 20 minutes? Instinctively, just as a football fan who is used to dynamics in matches shifting, I'm thinking to myself, well, they're going to have a period in this match. They're going to have an opportunity. And there was that Thuram header from the corner kick. That was about as good as it got for Inter in this match. And that wasn't even a clear-cut opportunity. I'd imagine the XG on that chance was pretty low. It was a complete demonstration of why PSG are the best team in Europe right now. We had talked about on the show in the lead-up to this game about whether Barcelona were more entertaining or whether their attack is better. But as a complete team from front to back, there is nobody else on PSG's level at the moment. And it was a demonstration of, we've already talked about him on the show, but it was a demonstration of everything Lucho Ball can be. And a word for Luis Enrique, because this is a guy who had veered maybe a little bit too far into being an ideologue as Spain manager, but it seems like he's learned from some of those lessons. And of course it helps that he's got the players to play the way that he ideally wants to. But this is a PSG team that is close to being as exhilarating as, for me, the most exciting team that I've ever watched, which was his great Barcelona team that had Messi, Neymar and Suarez. All the same qualities are there. And on top of this, you have a guy, Luis Enrique, who has faced genuine tragedy in their life. And I know there are questions, as we've raised already, there are questions over the sports washing of it all, of PSG winning this trophy. But on a personal level, I'm delighted for Lucho, and this really does, on a footballing level, this really does cement his place, I think, as one of the best of his generation as a manager.
So, Graham, you've used the phrase this was a complete demonstration of PSG's brilliance, which I entirely agree with. What are the magical ingredients? Lay it down. What did PSG do? What makes them so brilliant at this point? Is it the youth, the fluidity? Is it the balance? What is it?
Well, all of the above. I think you've just set out a checklist there of everything that PSG do brilliantly, and it's such a contradiction from what we've seen previously from PSG, where we had that obviously top-heavy, PSG team with Messi, Neymar and Mbappe. There was no real structure, no real buy-in. I have to imagine, or I have to wonder what Kylian Mbappe was thinking watching this game, or was he even watching? Was he just pretending that this match wasn't happening, that PSG weren't playing this way one season out from him leaving this team and them finally winning the Champions League? But yeah, it was a match where very quickly it became a complete nightmare for Inter. From start to finish, they were torn apart by a PSG team who frankly made them look old. They couldn't cope with the intensity that PSG had. And the game state that Inter wanted was, they wanted a game where PSG would have lots of possession but couldn't find the space to create clear openings, right? They wanted to like front up as a back five and frustrate PSG and expose the fact that PSG don't have an orthodox front man to hit with crosses, and they wanted to reduce PSG to what I would call like single ball attacks. But the number of transition moments PSG had in this game was absolutely overwhelming. And I think part of that reason was there was a tactical imbalance in this game where Inter would have that front two out of possession of Martinez and Thuram, and they were keeping them pretty high out of possession. And sort of gambling on the fact that they could press PSG in the way that PSG were doing to them from early on in the game. The problem is PSG are so press resistant, and once they got beyond that first line of confrontation, they were into the midfield and there was so much space for them to open up into. And the best illustration of this was for the third goal, which is the second Doué goal, where Vitinha ends up in the little pocket. He spins away from, I think it's Çalhanoğlu, who's trying to close him down with Thuram and Martinez. There's three around him. He gets out of that little pocket. He plays a little 1-2 with Dembele playing a little flick, and then PSG are away. That was the most extreme version of that, or illustration of that. But that sort of situation kept on happening. So it wasn't just on an individual level, and look, there was loads of that as well, where Hakimi was brilliant, Doué was brilliant, Vitinha was brilliant, but in terms of the tactical setup of the game, it didn't work for Inter either.
And Graham, just so I have it right, you're saying that was what caused Inter problems defensively, right? The front two were so high? Because I would also argue didn't really do them any favors in possession either. Like the second goal, the first goal for Doué, is Inter basically trying to possess a little bit and then eventually just kind of going long or trying to go direct. But at that point, Thuram has been standing with Lautaro. He drops in. Marquinhos is right with him and basically is able to kind of force another sort of direct ball from Inter. And Lautaro's out of position. PSG just get the ball right back. And so those front two trying to stay high, I think there's a goal there of maybe you keep PSG a little bit more honest. Maybe you can push them back. Maybe you can disrupt their lines. But with the intensity of PSG's press and how alive every single player was to every single threat, they basically just ended up getting stretched and not being able to alleviate any sort of pressure, so that for the first 30 minutes or so, it felt like it was going to be PSG 4 or 5-0, and that's pretty much how it went down.
Yeah, it did indeed. Yes.
It's kind of weird that that's actually how it went down.
I think it's clear that PSG, well, something we've said about them in recent months is they don't really have any weaknesses. They were very strong as a unit here, but were there any highlights, any performances you'd like to highlight, I should say? Desiree Doué, obviously, with 2 goals and assist in a Champions League final. That's pretty good. Dembele with a couple of assists as well. Yep. They're all quite young.
Makes me feel very old. Yes, so I think Doué, rightfully, I think was man of the match. The brace has to be
Did he
commended,
put the trophy in his pants while he did a post-match interview? That's what we need to know. We don't know at this point. But
I mean,
we'll
no pockets in it.
No pockets.
In it. I still tried to make that into 2 words. That was my mistake. 3 words, I guess. But I think he deserves plenty of attention. I would say Kvara and Dembele both are probably not going to get, or weren't going to get, as many of the highlights until Kvara scores a goal. But I thought both of them were so effective in transitioning to attack and playing their teammates in and drawing pressure and then finding the right pass. It's Dembele who plays that ball to Doué for the second goal. It's Kvara who breaks to then play Dembele the ball in the first place. And I felt like every PSG player did a really good job of transitioning rapidly to attack as fast as they could, but then, for the most part, not being overly selfish, not just trying to take it on themselves, and also not rushing things at the same time. They were sort of patient, but not overly patient. They found the exact sweet spot of, I can cut it back and wait 1 second, but then I will trust that the play is going to develop further, and it did pretty much every single time. And the last player I would spotlight, at least in the opening phase, is, I think, my favorite right back in the world, aside from Serginho Dest. It's Achraf Hakimi, who was fascinating as always in this game, starting as a right back, but then, sometimes being a striker, sometimes being a right winger, occasionally being a left back and left winger, while the left back and left winger were still on that side. There's a moment in I think it was the 32nd moment I wrote down, 33rd minute, when he gets the ball on the right as PSG are getting a little bit of pressure from Inter, and he drops it back to his center backs, and then he just kind of goes all the way across the field, and then comes all the way back, and then goes all the way across the field again. And I think there is a chaos there that within Lucho Ball, can't be that chaotic. It has to be part of a system, or he's going to get screamed at and benched. So there is a planned chaos to his approach, and I think Achraf Hakimi is one of the few fullbacks in the world who can do all of those roles and do them expertly and create chaos and still defend at times. So I think he deserves plenty of attention as well.
Yeah, he was absolutely outstanding, as a number of PSG players were. And it's he's maybe the best examples of how Lucho has unlocked other things. Obviously, there are some players we haven't seen before, like Doué has just broken into this team, maybe João Neves as well. I know he comes from Benfica, but this is his first season. But there are also players like Dembele, like Hakimi, who we know inside out, or we thought we knew inside out. And then Lucho's come into this team and just unlocked something else in them. So the thing with Hakimi was, can't defend. Not sure we can really say that about him anymore. There was a moment in the first half, I don't know if it was DeMarco down that left side, it might have been someone else, but there was one of the rare occasions when Inter did get down that left side, and then Hakimi is all of a sudden on the scene, and he's hustling and bustling, and he stops it going out from a corner, and you can just see the Inter players thinking, go away. You've been all over the pitch tonight. You've been on the left wing, you've been up the right, you've been inside the box. So yeah, I thought he was absolutely outstanding in this game, and I think it's just worth an extra beat on Desiree Doué, because I think this will probably be remembered as a bit of a statement performance by him. We spoke on Thursday's show about how PSG didn't have any obvious billboard stars. Well, maybe they do now. Maybe it's Doué as the 19-year-old who I think became the youngest ever player to score an assist in a Champions League final, and he reminds me of Neymar. The good Neymar, that is, not the PSG Neymar, ironically. But he's not a forward, he's not a winger, he's incredible on the dribble. There was one moment in the first half when he dropped the shoulder and consumed the soul of an Inter defender. Everything that he does is so classy. He's got such incredible positional awareness for someone so young. He's still only 19, of course, but he looks like he's got the intelligence to know where to be when Dembele is dropping deep, or when he's dropping out to the right, or when Kvaratskhelia is moving centrally as well, as he tends to do, and when Barcola comes on as well, he just knows where to be in that forward line. So yeah, he is potentially the billboard star of this PSG team.
Yeah, it's amazing. This PSG team, they used to go out and buy superstars, and now it's, we have superstars at home. So there we go. Graham, Luis Enrique, 2 trebles now. Obviously, he's got an incredible body fat percentage as well. We can get to that later. But does he belong on the Mount Rushmore, of great European managers at this point? Are we sleeping on him at this point?
I think people had been. I don't think they are going to after this team. And also, the thing about this PSG team is that they are still so young. And I mentioned it earlier, they made Inter Milan look very old. Do you know why that is? Because they are very old. And the contrast is that this PSG team is very young. They've been one of the youngest in the Champions League this season. So yeah, there's a couple of established stars in there like Dembele and Hakimi. But otherwise, this is a team that is at the start of an evolution. And so there is scope for Lucho to win even more. I mean, he was kind of denied the opportunity at Barcelona to build on what he had with that team. That was the only Champions League that he won. I mean, next season, PSG are going to be the team to beat, and there's the opportunity for them to add to the summer in the summer window as well. So, yes, I absolutely believe he's on that Mount Rushmore. I would have put him up there in that level before now, anyway. I think in this era of managers needing like a style and an identity, he has always been pretty strong in that regard. But now he's got the results at not just one team, but at 2 different teams and kind of 2 different eras as well, 10 years apart.
Graham, cart before the horse for sure for me here. But do you have any concerns about them being able to kind of sustain this level of intensity that he brings, basically? If you've just won everything you can win and you're rolling it back for the next season, like, I do sort of wonder how well it goes when you are being screamed at once again after having just won everything you can possibly win.
They're all 19. They could probably do this on hangovers at this point.
Well, that's the thing. That was actually the point I was going to make. Was they're young. Like, they've got at least a few more years of this left in them, and they're going to continue to add depth. I mean, we haven't throughout this run. We didn't even talk about Zaire Emery, like who a year ago we were talking about as this like generational midfielder. So the point I'm making is they've got other players to help them sustain this level, and so yeah, I think this is the start of a bit of an era for this PSG team.
Yes, it is. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at what went wrong for Inter and much more. Do join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League review. PSG 5, Inter 0. We haven't even got to the main event, actually, Taylor, the pre-show from Linkin Park. Got to say, the stage setup looked actually really cool. I thought the best thing about it was a really good way to completely break up the brilliant atmosphere that both sets of fans were creating before the game. It did a fantastic job of that, I thought.
Not surprisingly, I did not watch that. I was too busy being mesmerized by David Beckham and Tom Cruise. I didn't watch that either. How was it, Ryan? Did you watch? Did you tune in at 1 p.m. as you recommended everyone do?
Yeah, I definitely got the timing right in the preview episode. To tune in at 1 p.m. everybody. I hope you did. It was Linkin Park.
It truly came off as a joke. It truly came off as you being like, tune in at 1 for that Linkin Park show. I thought you meant it intentionally.
Well, I did. It was great. Graham, did you watch it?
We got barely anything of it. We got some new tune that I hadn't even heard of. I mean, I am a closet Linkin Park fan here, so yeah, I wanted some of the hits, but we got about 30 seconds of it. So you tell me, Ryan, was it any good?
It was Linkin Park.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's enough to be said.
Ryan, can I ask Graham a burning question I have?
How burning is it?
Pretty burning. It's one that I really did think about during the game, and I was like, 5-0 is the type of game when you ask Graham this question. Graham, that player you mentioned, Zaire Emery, his first name, is that one of those ones that's hard for Scottish people to say?
No, Warren.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no L's in there. If it was Warlen, then with an L in there, like Berhalter, then yeah.
Okay.
Warlen Zaire Emery.
I wasn't sure if it was like a Warren, if it was like a hard one to get, but I see you go the other way with it.
How do you feel about the country star Morgan Wallen? Can you handle that one?
What's his second name? Spell it out for me.
Morgan Wallen.
Wallen?
Yep.
Morgan Wallen?
This
is definitely what people expected.
Bag.
This is definitely what people expected from our Champions League final review show.
Yes. On that note, let's get back to the soccer action. Taylor, I was disappointed in Inter Milan, which I don't think is a surprise to say. They lost 5-0 in this game, but I just thought their midfield was far too easy to play through time again. I mean, they got a bit better towards the end of the first half, maybe, but never enough to threaten in this one. Players who you expect more from delivered less, I thought. Like players like DiMarco, who just didn't have a very good name. Everyone just seemed to really play beneath themselves. And it just left me thinking, Taylor, this is a team who've been really consistently excellent all season long. Consistency is probably one of their best assets. They changed up the team so much in the last few weeks, basically foregoing the Scudetto so that they could get this one prize they've been trying to get for the last 15 years. They gambled. They put all their eggs in their basket for this game. Arguably, they should have been fresher. They should have had an approach the kind of approach that got them past Bayern and Barcelona should have been present here. I just don't understand what happened and why they were so beneath themselves.
Yeah, I think normally in a game like this, if I ask Joe, say, was this PSG being exceptional or Inter being terrible, he'll say it was a bit of both. I'm inclined to say it was more PSG being incredible than it was Inter being especially poor. But I agree with your overall point, Ryan, that it was an Inter team that showed up, I think, kind of expecting, as we did in the preview, for this one just to be a sort of nervy, tightly contested affair that maybe they could sneak a goal early. And so it just felt like there was a slackness born of, like, you guys know the first 10 minutes is meant to be kind of chill as we figure this game out, right? Like, there was not that kind of requisite intensity that PSG were certainly bringing. And so there were moments, like before the goal, DeMarco has one where he kind of pops out on the left wing, and it looks like they're defending in a 4-4-2. And I thought that was a deliberate decision. I thought it was a way to maybe push Achraf Hakimi back or engage him higher up. And then after, that's when Dembele cuts inside way too easily and gets a shot off way too easily. And then you see all of the Inter defenders turn and scream at DeMarco, and you realize, like, no, he just kind of drifted out of position. And he does that again for the opener. He just decides to abandon his mark. He is on Hakimi, and then just decides to go close down when there's already 3 players over there. He's worried about the shot coming in, and so he abandons the space, and that's why Hakimi is so wide open. And that was kind of par for the course for Inter. So there are these momentary lapses, these momentary switch-offs that I think are just so uncharacteristic of them that it did feel like a down performance from them at a time when they are playing a team that if you are slack at all, they're going to punish you. And punished Inter were. So it is a bit of a head-scratcher because they rested the players, because they kind of did the rotation they did. You would have assumed they were going to be incredibly disciplined and up for it, and maybe just a little bit more dark artsy about them to try to disrupt the rhythm and the intensity of the game. And that is not anything that they were, so I remain confused.
Yeah, there was no plan B or adaptation to falling behind early in the game. And I put in our Slack chat when that game goes 1-0, this is probably the best thing for this match. And what I expected to happen was for Inter to have more of a plan on how to, in particular, activate Dumfries and DeMarco in this game, because they are so crucial to... We don't really see with Inter, I mean, I guess it sometimes happens with like Çalhanoğlu getting to the edge of the box, but we don't really see the runners from midfield being the thing that links the midfield with the forward line of Thuram and Martinez. It tends to come from the wide areas, as we saw in the games against Barcelona. And
what is it about their 45-year-old midfield, Graham, that you think isn't going to be able to just like swiftly cover distance?
I mean, accumulatively, I think that's a midfield of over 100 years old. So. Yeah, there might be something to that. But DeMarco and
but now I'm like, is that true? Because it might actually be true. If you add it
up, you get pretty close, I think. Yeah. But Dumfries, obviously, in particular against Barcelona, was incredible. DeMarco, obviously, over the course of his Inter career, has been so incredible. But that was a microcosm of how Inter just were never able to find solutions because they were being pinned back by what was coming at them the other way. And even after a while, it wasn't even as if the physical threat was the thing that was pinning Inter back. It was like the mindset. It was it was the threat of the threat. It was the possibility that Hakimi or Nuno Mendes, or he didn't do a huge amount of this in the game, but the possibility that they could come at you. And so DeMarco in particular, I mean, he never looked comfortable against what was coming against him in the match. PSG targeted him throughout. 40 seconds before the goal, I don't know if you guys spotted this, Bastoni is, how shall I say this, emphatically urging DeMarco.
That's the one. That's the one I was talking about, where I was like, oh, that must be intentional. And then after the shot, Bastoni turns and screams.
He's
and
like,
I was like, oh,
what are you
not
doing?
Intentional.
Like,
not intentional.
He needs to get closer to Dembele in that moment.
Yeah.
It never got any better for him, and he never got any closer to anyone out on that side. And of course, Inzaghi hooks him. I think he must have got a rocket at half time, told you must be better in the second half. He wasn't better in the second half, and he gets hooked, 8 minutes into the second half. So yeah, a bit of a nightmare match for DeMarco. So I think it was a combination of Inter not reacting to going a goal behind, because actually in hindsight what they might have been better doing was sitting back, even though they're behind in the game, sitting back in their back five, inviting pressure on top of them, allowing PSG to get into the opposition half, but fronting them up in that back five and then having space to hit out on the counter, as we saw them do brilliantly in the quarterfinal against Bayern Munich in particular. But obviously to make that tactical call when you're already 1-0 down in the Champions League final takes a level of boldness that, frankly, Inzaghi didn't demonstrate in this match. So it was tactical, it was individual as well with some of the lack of engagements, and then also I just thought mentally they looked scrambled after a while, and once it goes to 3-0, the game's over.
You're right, Graham. That is what they needed. That is just such a difficult decision to be like, look, we're 1-0 down, like, everybody retreat, and then we'll just get to halftime and figure this out, and we'll just defend for our lives. That would have been the smart decision, but at the same time, I fully understand why, if you're the coach, you don't want to wave that white flag. You want to kind of believe that, okay, that was a one-off. Our guys will get back into it. We'll figure it out. We'll be fine. That is a tricky situation, and Inzaghi, I think, doesn't really cover himself in glory in this game in the end. Definitely had some screaming at halftime, but I'm going to say also probably had a lot of instructions for Inter coming out, and I don't feel like Inter were able to execute really any part of the game plan. We already talked about that front two being too high up, both defensively but also in possession. And I think another key point, Graham, that you already raised, but I would like to double down upon, is that when you can't activate those wingbacks and you can't get them into attacking positions that are even just allowing them to get away from some of that PSG press, you are then never able to get the foothold you need to establish possession in PSG's end so you can slow the game down. You're always having to play out of the back. You're always having to rush passes because you're coming under the press in a really risky part of the field. But because Dumfries never has time and is never in open space, and the same for DeMarco, the possession always ends up being along the back line to the midfield, back to the back line, and then eventually just long when the pressure is too much. And there was no real way to disrupt what PSG were trying to do on the day from Inter. So it does feel like in the end, the only thing you could have done is just kind of go gray rock, sit back, and just hope for the best until halftime.
I think, Taylor, in our preview episode, I think we sort of mentioned this as sort of a defining moment for both teams. Obviously, PSG closing out that goal of getting the Champions League title that's eluded them, and for the Inzaghi Inter team, getting that Champions League that they tried to get a couple of years ago and didn't get it. What do we think this game does for Inzaghi's legacy? Obviously, now he's probably on the phone to his realtor in Riyadh as we speak. But I mean, does this taint what he's achieved thus far at all?
I think in the immediate aftermath, for a moment, yes, but not really. I think in the end, it probably does just kind of fold into the narrative of this team. We're a little bit long in the tooth. He took them as far as he could for as long as he could, and it's a credit to him that he was able to get them this far. And I think if he were to walk away, I think the next Inter manager comes in, and it's probably not the last next Inter manager, put it that way, because I think there's going to be a lot of turnover in this squad. They're going to have to update, because it's not as though they've got a ton of youngsters raring to go on the bench. They've got a few, but when they cut to that bench, there was Marko Arnautovic. I don't think he is going to be the game-changing influence they need next season. So it's going to be a rebuild no matter what. So I think Inzaghi, if he walks away now, it's kind of he did the best he could. It's an aging squad. It's the end of a cycle. Credit to him for everything he did. Now let's hire Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the sack boy, to kind of last 6 months. Then we'll fire him, and we'll bring in the right appointment for at least another 6 months.
No, Taylor, at the top of Serie A, it's just musical chairs. So it goes Conte, Allegri, Motta, then back to the start, Pioli, and they just go round and round and round in circles.
Where's Spalletti right now?
He's Italy manager, but the timer on his chair is coming.
Double duty.
Next summer he'll be available.
Yeah, to answer your question, Ryan, I think Inter making 2 Champions League finals in 3 seasons is an overachievement. When you look at the wage bill and the budget of this team, and Taylor, you highlighted Marko Arnautovic as one of the options that Inter have on the bench, is the perfect illustration, epitome of the disadvantage that Inter have in games like this. And yeah, sure, PSG have gone more homegrown and they've got more French players and young players. But I still during this game I still saw the budgets for these two teams. PSG's is over double what Inter's is. So Inzaghi should be remembered as a manager who has elevated a team to a level that financially they have no right to be at, and I hope that's how he is remembered, because I think he is up there as one of the best managers in the world at the moment.
Fair enough. Taylor, something else we flagged in our preview episode was that the importance of the goalkeepers, the respective goalkeepers in this game. Obviously, one had a bit more work than the other.
Yeah.
Was it 5 goals that went past someone's near post, or was it 4?
It was 4 at least. I'm pretty sure one of them was the deflection, but it was intriguing because I do, when that happens enough times, I start to wonder if that was a deliberate briefing. And if you watch the replays for most of the ones where he's beaten at the near post, he is diving the wrong way or very much leaning the wrong way, indicating he is about to kind of prematurely go far post. Even the Barkala miss where he dribbles, I think, the entire team, including the goalkeeper, and then still misses it. It is a very tight angle. It's a really good dribble by him.
Poor Acerbi in that moment. 39-year-old Acerbi just gets ended by Bradley Barkala in that moment.
A little bit. And so he will be sad that he doesn't score. But I would say that's another example of he doesn't score because he tries to go near post. And it does seem like a thing that they were intentionally doing. Kvaradana does it, I believe, for his breakaway goal. I think Doué does it for his first goal as well. That's the one that takes the deflection. Hakimi is just the wide open tap in. But I think most of them were near post goals, which tells me there was a good amount of research put into what's Jan Sommer going to do in this game. And the answer was, in the end, not save goals and pick the ball out of the back of his net pretty often, which I don't really even fully knock him for, because I'm not sure there are any that he really could have done much better with, even if he is beaten near post. So many of them are him 1v1 or rebounds or just like FIFA tap-in goals. It felt like he was done a disservice by his defense on the day. I don't think Donnarumma was exceptional. Sorry, Graham, I'm going long. I will go quick here. But I thought he was like good enough. He gets down low to have the kind of big hand save on the Thuram shot, but it was already 4-0 at that point. But he flaps at some crosses. He's stable overall. I did not think it was as stellar of a goalkeeping performance across the board as maybe I had hyped it up to be.
I'm always a little bit confused by the near post criticism. I'm sure there are goals where like a goalkeeper shouldn't be beaten at the near post, but the near post is where you have the shortest reaction time, right? So it makes sense to kind of target the near post. So I agree, Taylor. Like, there's not a single goal in this game where I think Jan Sommer maybe could have done better, even if PSG were targeting the near post. I just think it's so difficult from... Most of them are close range as well, like, or one-on-one situations like the Kvaratskhelia one. So, yeah, don't put any blame at his door.
It's tricky, though, because to my understanding at least, the idea of being critical of a goalkeeper being beaten at the near post is that they had bad positioning, that your body, as you come out to close down that angle, should naturally cover the near post at least, and then if you leave the far post open, so be it, because it's a higher degree of difficulty, more likely that ball goes just wide of the post. And so if you're beaten near post, theoretically it's that you're out of position. It's not that Jan Sommer was out of position. I thought his positioning was fine and his footwork was good until he started to leave early. And that's one where, like, if he's been doing that the whole season and it has bailed Inter out and led to amazing saves and like really last chance stops, I'm not going to then criticize him if in this game PSG are able to spot that and go for it. It's just a strange one because it is then sort of his fault, but I'm also not really blaming him because I'm not sure there's much he could have done aside from have like superhuman processing and identify what was happening after that first goal. And I don't think that really could have happened.
I think if there was a flaw to Sommer's performance, it was his distribution out from the back. But then, to be honest, like, it's difficult when PSG are sending 3 roadrunners at you. The only thing that was missing was like an anvil to drop on top of him. So, yeah, very difficult for Jan Sommer.
They did paint that fake tunnel. That was kind of brutal.
All right, good stuff. Let's take one more quick break. When we come back, we'll look at what's next for both of these teams and take a little look back at this Champions League season too. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League final review. Graham, I've got a what if for you.
Go on.
What if it were Barcelona in this final instead? Were we robbed of a great final?
Potentially, yeah. I think we might have been. I mean, look, we've just had a demonstration of everything that PSG are excellent at, so maybe they still score 5 goals against Barcelona. Maybe they score more, given what we know about Barcelona this season. But yes, I would have trusted Barcelona to have had more weapons to hurt Inter Milan going the other way.
That's the difference, right? I wondered that as it got to 4 and 5-0, is would this have been closer if Barca were here? And I think the major difference maker would have been that Barca attack and the individuality of that Barca attack at that. That Lamine Yamal, we've seen it at times this season. You can do everything right. He is so good individually that he can still find a way to create something from nothing and can do so early and often. And so I think at the very least, if it were 2-0, I would have felt like Barca still have so much firepower that if they get one, they can easily get two more, and this could be flipped on its head. So I think with Inter, it felt more like if you don't have Dumfries able to play the way he wants to, and you don't have DeMarco, and you don't have much service to your front two, hard to see any like difference makers from an individual standpoint at that point.
And Barcelona would have been just as aggressive. They would have been more aggressive in the press as Inter. They're just better at that than Inter. Inter aren't a great pressing team, which was why I was kind of surprised they were as high as they were in this match. But I would, again, trust Barcelona to make much more of those scenarios than Inter were in this match. So yes, unfortunately, I do think we were robbed of a potentially classic final.
It's an odd one that like the team that is probably second happiest coming out of this game, or the supporters that are second happiest, are Arsenal supporters. That like, hey, like what was it, 3-1 on the aggregate? We ran them close in the first one. We got the goal in the second. Like it could have been a different way. And so I think we go from being like knocked out by PSG after getting past Real Madrid, and now I'm sort of like, all right, Arsenal, like good work by you all, because you certainly did better than Inter were able to do.
I'll contend that the second happiest fans were AC Milan fans. You could be bad too, Inter. Oh.
That's probably true.
Yeah, could be. Taylor, my question for you about PSG. Finished 15th in the phasening of this competition.
Yeah.
Is it possible to say that this is the greatest growth from the start of a season to the finish of a season that we've seen in an individual like top flight team? The way they've sort of grown throughout the last few months is quite incredible. Have we ever seen a team change this much?
I don't think so. I really don't. And I think about pausing there to say, when you get to World Cups or Euros, let's say, like the teams that end up making the final or winning the whole thing, you start to kind of identify early on. You can see what they're doing, and then you can see how they improved, and you can see how they adapted as they went. But there is about teams that find a way to win an element of like, oh, look how good they are from the jump, and then look how they added pieces and look how they improved, such that you're not surprised to see them in the final or winning a final. With PSG, to your point, the way they played the phasening and some of the, I guess, just like uncertainty around the team in the absence of Mbappe and them being fully Luis Enrique's team, it always felt to me like they were going to be able to be more of a cohesive, comprehensive team in all caps once they got rid of some of those marquee names that, again, weren't going to defend. And at the same time, it still felt like, oh, maybe they're missing a few key pieces. Maybe this is them still kind of trying to discover that format, and then next season is when they kick on. And so to see how quickly they went from that to this is astounding, and how quickly they went from teenagers and youngsters who are hyped and who are very good, don't get me wrong, but now this whole PSG team feels world-class. They feel elite, and everything about them is so impressive. But it's a lot of names that we've known we're very good. We've known we're great. I did not know we're this good until the last few months. Vitinha is a prime example of that.
He's so good.
It's crazy. And João Neves, I think, is so incredibly impressive in the middle. Even Fabian Ruiz, a player that we've seen for other clubs and other competitions, I don't think has ever played at this level. And I do think it speaks to Luis Enrique as the manager that he gets this level of commitment and belief from his players so that we then see that next level bit of development as a team and as individuals.
Yeah, I think there's three key moments in the progression of PSG over the course of the season. The first one is the deployment of Dembele as a centre-forward, which was not something that I had ever considered before. Has been Dembele as a player that we've all watched lots of over the course of his career. I'd kind of written Ousmane Dembele off as someone who was a difference maker at like the true elite level, someone who could make a difference in the biggest games like Champions League finals.
Because of injuries, or?
Say that again, Ryan?
Because of his injury record, or why?
Because he could not stop playing the PlayStation at 2 a.m. in the morning was Ousmane Dembele's problem. So moves him into the centre. Ousmane Dembele's thing, of course, is he can go on both feet. And the way that PSG send runners forward with, it's usually Ruiz or Hakimi, they pin back the opposition defence, and then he's one of the best long-range shooters in the world, and he can go both sides. So it just opened up Ousmane Dembele as that player to get other players into space around him as well. Second thing is Kvaratskhelia joining in January, which just gives PSG that extra bit of threat in their forward line, and a slightly different dimension where I always think Kvaratskhelia is looking for a bit more separation than Doué and Dembele, who obviously comes central, and we saw it in his goal in this game where he's able to isolate the defender and get him behind. I think Kvaratskhelia is always looking for that. The third thing is a match. The third thing is the win over Man City towards the end of the phasing, where I think that game is 4-2. The scoreline's actually closer than I remember the performance being. They were absolutely outstanding that night, PSG, and that was the first time that I'd thought of PSG as a team that could potentially go and win this competition. And when you look at the way that they played in this game, in this final, you see a group of players from back to front, the squad players as well, who have complete buy-in in what the manager is asking them to do. And I think once you get a little bit of a taste of it, like what's even Man City, who are, at that point were having a pretty bad season and had a bad season on the whole. Once you so comprehensively dismantle Man City and everything that they have, you get a little taste of it and you think, wow, this is the team that we could be. And from that moment on, there was just no stopping PSG in this competition.
Yeah, definitely not. Let's look ahead for both these teams. We kind of touched on it, Taylor, with Inter and sort of potentially a rebuild coming. Simone Inzaghi appears to be on his way out. Who knows which manager is going to be where the carousel is going to drop off for Inter at this point. There's a few names in the hat, of course. But do you expect it'll be a pretty drastic rebuild at this point? Do we think there's going to be still a reasonably mature squad that we have currently?
I would assume the second one, because I don't really know their finances, so I don't know what they are able to spend. You would assume a deep Champions League run and then qualifying for the Champions League again probably puts them into okay financial positions, but does it put them into a situation where they can go out and sign all of the many replacements they probably need? I doubt it. I mean, they've got like Aslani, for example. Christian Aslani has been the kind of, when they're playing their B team, he comes in, he's 23 years old. He can do a serviceable job, but I think the possession and on-the-ball vision that you get from Çalhanoğlu and Mkhitaryan, that's going to be so difficult for them to replicate and find replacements for, because those are the two more veteran, to put it nicely, midfielders in that usual Inter team. Like, I don't know if you can replace those two players as easily without having to spend a ton of money, unless maybe they continue to go with more veteran players who are like perceived as being slightly past their prime and can be repurposed or retooled into what you need them to be. And so even there, you're keeping it as an older team. So I think it is going to be sort of tricky, because so many of the players that make this Inter team are a bit older, might need some replacing. And so you can run it back, but it feels like it's not going to be as potent as it was this season for sure.
Yeah, financially for Inter, the problem is going to be they were seized by a company called Oaktree a year ago. So it was Suning, the Chinese company that owned them for a long time.
Seized is a strong word.
Well, that's the correct word to use, because they were placed into the ownership of Oaktree. I think Elliott Management as well owned them for a while. And so Oaktree are like an investment company that, as far as I'm aware, the last that I read of them, basically take on like failing assets and make their money back on them. That does not bode well for Inter Milan spending a lot of money going forward, despite the fact that I was just reading there, as you were talking, Taylor, that their revenue this year, they've got record revenue this year of 470 million. So maybe if they had other owners, they would spend a little bit of money. But it seems like the people in charge at San Siro right now are interested in recouping a lot of the debt and the losses that's been placed on the club by Suning Group.
All right, Graham, what about PSG? What's next for them? Is it kind of a what now moment for them now? How does this team progress next season? Do they get even more terrifying?
Potentially. And we got a hint of it at the end of this match with Seni Mayulu scoring the fifth goal. And I wrote a piece for FotMob a couple of weeks ago on how basically PSG have like their next generation lined up. So they've got like Desiree Doué and obviously Barcola's still young and João Neves is still young. But they've also got players like, Zaire Warren himself, Zaire Emery. They've got Ibrahim Mbaye. They've got Mayulu, who obviously gets off the bench in this game and scores. They've got Axel Tappé. They've got Noam Kamara. All academy teenagers who look the absolute business. And the scary thing for PSG is they've got that backing of Qatar, obviously, so they can go into the transfer market and spend €8 million on Kvaratskhelia like they did in January. But they are potentially the only club who could feasibly do the Barcelona thing of having a never-ending pipeline of talent as well. Paris is, along with like maybe Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, like it's right up there as one of the South London. Well, yeah, actually, it sounded like you're making a joke there, but actually, South London is up there as one of the best, most productive hotbeds of soccer talent in the world. So if they're able to combine those two things, which it kind of looks like they're far along the path of doing that, of having that pipeline of young talent and supplementing it with a couple players in the transfer market, Yeah, PSG are a scary prospect right now.
Graham, I'm also like, I don't see how they fall apart, basically, is like the harsh way to put it. But there's nobody in this team that I feel like is like destined for that next big move right away this summer. And there are a few players that have like already had that move, and then maybe it hasn't gone swimmingly. Dembele has had it maybe twice. And so it just feels like there are a lot of players who are in the right position. And somebody like Donnarumma, for example, I guess there are rumors that he could leave. He's only 26 years old still. But why would you? Why? Like, I guess if you want to challenge yourself in Italy or you want to see what another league is like. But if you're being as well remunerated as he is to stroll to a domestic title and now win a Champions League, why would you leave? Why would Kvardana want to leave? Why would any of these players want to leave?
It's famously terrible to live in Paris as well. You know,
yes, of course, yeah. It's so ugly. Such terrible views. The Eiffel Tower blocks everything, let's be real. So like, I'm sure there are players that will be tempted by bigger offers, or will be like, there will be attempts to sign some of these players by quote-unquote bigger clubs. It seems like Real Madrid, if ever they are interested, players cannot say no. The same for Barcelona. But there are no players in this team that really feel like they are right there where it makes sense for them to make that jump. Like Vitinha maybe gets some looks. Like, I mean, we'll certainly have interest, but I don't know if I would jump if I were him. So it feels like it's William Pacho at the end. Is 23 years old, center back. Maybe if somebody splashes enough money, but they'll have the amount of money PSG to say no to any sort of offers if they want to, and they'll have enough money to replace him if they want to. So it just sort of feels like it is a very, 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 very strong position for PSG and Luis Enrique.
They're at the top of the food chain. I don't think anyone sees them as like a stepping stone to something bigger. I know Mbappe did last summer, but that felt like a bit of an exceptional case that had been rumbling for a number of years. I think if anything, it's going to be players who are pushed out. And Donnarumma could potentially, I said this on Thursday, like as good as Donnarumma has been for PSG, and I kind of still stand by my point. I thought he was the best goalkeeper in the Champions League this season. He has his weaknesses. He flapped out a couple crosses in this game. He's not great with his feet. So if there was someone who emerged as like the new Ederson or something like that, as someone who could give PSG that ability to play it from the back, then I expect PSG to jump at that opportunity. Marquinhos as well. I think William Pacho, by the way, has been brilliant and was brilliant in this game. Does the defensive basics really well. Marquinhos still has. We haven't really seen it in this run, but still has an error in him every so often. I think he's getting on a little bit, so potentially like a next level central defender they would move for. But other than that, like, it's difficult to work out where the weaknesses are and where the evolutions can happen in this PSG team.
He's been there the longest, right, of anybody
in
this team now, right? He's been there since 2013. I can't imagine the original owners of PSG and their original decision makers, like when they were signing players, thought like, that's the guy who's going to be here long term.
That's our legacy
guy. Be the guy. Credit to him though. Really enjoyed him at the end. This sounds harsh. Really enjoyed him at the end, crying, I guess. But seeing how emotional he was just laying face down on the ground. You could see how much it meant to him and how long he had worked for this to happen. So congratulations to Marquinhos, and commiserations to the Inter supporter who they cut to, who was just openly weeping. I'm going to assume at least some of his friends back home screenshotted that one for use for the foreseeable future.
I think they'd all thrown their TVs into the river at that point, actually. So they probably
his Milan supporting friends, his AC Milan supporting friends.
There we go. All right. One final question for me, Graham. This Champions League season, it's been pretty good, hasn't it? Like, I think the phasing format worked pretty well. We had some really good quarterfinal games, so probably the best semi-final of all time. It's been a good one, right?
I thought your final question was going to be, is the Premier League the Farmers' League now? To which I answer yes, it is. No, has been.
Excuse me, are you talking about the league that just gave us the Europa Conference League winners and the Europa League winners? How
That's
dare
true.
you?
Yeah, definitely not Farmers. Definitely not Farmers. I think it has been an excellent Champions League season, Ryan, and obviously the latter rounds. The format change has no bearing on the latter round matches that we got. But just going back to the phasing, I thought that was an improvement. Is it perfect? No, there's still an imbalance between the elite level of European soccer and the rest, but there's no format in the world that is going to equalise that. So
you cut it in half. Super League. No?
Sure, yeah.
Crickets?
Let's go for that. Lots of crickets. I thought it was good. I thought it was maybe not quite on the level of the Champions League season. Do you remember there was the the Barcelona comeback, and then there was the same season where the Ajax Spurs semi-final was, and the Spurs Man City quarter-final, and the Liverpool Barca semi-final. I think that was the greatest Champions League season of all time. But this is up there.
Graham is correct.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I suppose the only way to improve the format, Graham, maybe if you invited in other confederations. You could do the whole tournament like in the summer in the US, for example.
In one country,
What if you did that?
And you could have a Panini album where maybe, say, the president of FIFA gives himself a sticker in that Panini album.
Did he really do that?
He did, yeah. So that
That's great.
It's the shiny one, Taylor.
Let's
It's the
keep
one you
thinking
want,
about
the
this.
Gianni sticker.
What if we get a weird trophy and we keep it in one politician's office the whole time?
One idea. I love it.
To steal a line from The Big Short, that man is so transparent in his own self-interest, I almost respect it. Like, that is insane that he makes his Panini sticker the shiny one. Ryan, if we are going to do some sort of, like, World Cup but for clubs, can we also make sure that you can have arbitrary decision-making for who gets invited so that, say, like a team with a really well-known global superstar gets to participate for reasons?
Yeah, well, I hope someone's writing this down. This is all gold.
How about this? A one-match playoff between a team from Liga MX and one from MLS for no particular reason, and whoever wins gets into the competition.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. One more idea from me.
It's too silly now. It's too silly to be believable.
Hear me out. Really expensive tickets and no one will go. How about that?
Brilliant. You should work in marketing and PR.
Excellent. I should. Very good. All right, guys, that's the Champions League final wrapped up then. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this special Saturday episode, listener. If you'd like more of our bonus content and to support us, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you can head. Bonus episodes, bonus video, access to our Discord server. All the cool kids are hanging out in there, and us. You can come and chat with us there, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your Champions League insights.
Thank you very much, my friend. It has been wonderful.
Graham Ruthven, a pleasure as always, my good sir.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And listener, thank you to Mostest. We'll be back on the feed very shortly. But for now, bye!